I'm kind of curious, Mo, what are you seeing here on the peninsula and in the South Bay area as far as drugs? What is the most common? What state of the state, please?
First off, I want to echo what's been said. And, I've been a psychologist in the community for 40 years. Started and run the Thelma McMillan Center, Torrance Memorial Hospital for 25 years. I feel woefully unequipped to speak after watching that film and listening to Cindy. Because both of them, the film touched everything that we see in our treatment center. And everything that parents deal with and kids on the Hill are going through. Cindy's story is breaks your heart. And unfortunately, as Jim said, we've heard, he could come in this community and get a line of people to come and be in this film as well, unfortunately. So, real quick in terms of the state of the union, we have a teen treatment center, and we see kids are drinking alcohol, of course, and smoking marijuana, of course, primarily, but pills are big. Heroin is very big in this community, believe it or not, and it derives from opioid use. Kids begin using pills that are prescribed or that they go find at parties, but then heroin winds up being cheaper. Easier to get, believe it or not, in some ways. So, we're still seeing, like I said, mostly the kids will try anything. I think one of the things that I'm going to just touch on 2 or 3 things, and then we'll turn it over to questions. The kids' brains are developing. We know a lot more about neurobiology today than we did years ago, and kids' brains don't develop till they're 25. They're not kids anymore. And when they're teenagers, they have the parts of their brains that deal with their bodies and their emotions and their feelings and their motivation and desires. Those are all well intact. The part that's missing yet is the part that has to do with judgment. So you've got these kids out there with these drives and energy and not the greatest judgment. Those pill parties, or the pill party that you saw in the film, we hear about all the time. It's shocking, okay? It's not shocking it's shocking that occurs. Can I just keep saying?
Sure.
I want to say one more thing. Everything that they've said is spot on and right on, but I think maybe one place that I'd like to add to, there's a lot of discussion tonight about addiction, which is of course horrendous. But what we've found and what we are working towards has to do with early intervention and prevention. When you have a talk like it's great that you folks came out. It really is. We realize over the years of giving talks, you put kids and drugs in the topic of a talk in the community, and hardly anybody comes. Either people say, I don't want to be seen coming out, or they say, well, I don't have that problem. My kid doesn't have that issue. Or whatever the reason is, very low attendance. So we change the topic sometimes. I always thought we should change it to how to raise your SAT scores. And then the room would be filled. And by the way, if the kids stop using drugs and drinking and smoking pot, they'll raise their SAT scores. We actually know that. But what I do want to say a word about real quick is in addition to addiction, because that's one of the things that happens is people say, well, my child's not an addict. The reality is this: kids who use drugs, about 90% of them are not going to become addicted. But the problem is, for many of them, it's like playing Russian roulette. And we have a tremendous amount of children who are not addicts, but have tremendous levels of what we call unintended negative consequences. In other words, they get in a lot of trouble. And when I say trouble, it could be lower grades, or problems in school, or sexually transmitted disease, or pregnancies, but all the way to prison and death. And those are kids that are not addicted. I've got too many I can tell you stories about that are in prison for 15 years, great kids, but if only is the name of that movie, if only they didn't do that day. Okay, so I guess the point I'm trying to make for those of you out there, it's not just about sitting back and saying, well, my child's not addicted, so I don't really have to listen to this. Okay? If your child is beginning to experiment and begin to look to basically experiment, then it is important to do everything you've heard to get in there, to look, to talk, to really not, like Connor's mother, which to not be in denial. The average parent doesn't know what their child is doing for about 2 years. Oh, I take that back. What I meant is the average length of time is about 2 years before a parent knows what their child is up to. And oftentimes by then, they're pretty deep into it. So pay attention. Listen to them. Watch what their music they're listening to. Watch their friends. Give them a kiss at night when they come home. You know what? Smell their breath. Okay? And if they don't want to give you a kiss, maybe they got to read something they're trying to hide. So anyway, I just want to make sure you made that point about the addiction is severe and terrible, but so is the path to getting there, by the way. Okay, there's lots of unintended negative consequences.